that I met a guy. We were just talking, and I'm not even sure how we met, but it turns out we've got a lot in common. He's got a really cool ministry for fundraising for churches and charities. So that's what you're watching tonight. If you would get over to the YouTube channel, subscribe, ring the alert bell. You can comment there, thumbs up, thumbs down. All that stuff helps with the algorithms for YouTube. So that would all be a big help to me. Now, before we get started, I'm going to make sure we're live. I'm recording. Now, the problem with this equipment is I never know when I'm live, so I look a little stupid generally at the beginning of every show, which is, in a strange way, charming. So I'm guessing we're live. I don't know. Hold on one second. Hello, God bless, and welcome. I'm Kevin Haggerty. You're watching the Godlogic Project, where we discuss maintaining a Christian worldview in a post-Christian America. We have a kind of a cool live podcast tonight because we're going to talk to a guy that runs a very cool ministry, a ministry that is for fundraising for charities and for churches. Instead of just doing the usual cake sales and bake drives and all the stuff, candy sales that you see a lot of schools and a lot of charities doing, this guy does something very cool. And I'm going to introduce you to that in a second. But first, the intro music, of course. Hello, God bless, and welcome. I'm Kevin Haggerty, and this is the Godlogic Project.
Shut up, Kevin.
That's right. I'm Kevin Haggerty. That's Mike Houston telling me to shut up. I forgot to turn the monitors off and put my headphones on. I've done that. I'm going to introduce you guys now to my guest, not in the studio, but live over the Zoom app. Not live in the studio, but live on the Zoom app. I have Bob Wilson. Bob, how are you today, buddy?
Hey, we're doing great, Kevin. We are definitely social distancing. We're probably about 1,800 miles apart.
I know you're pretty far away. Now, I've done shows with people in Massachusetts and New Jersey, and this is my first Michigan. Right? You're in Michigan.
Southern Lower Michigan. We actually had snow flurries today. Yeah,
so it's still Christmas there, I guess. You guys,
yeah.
When do you have Easter? In August. That's the only time you can really have it, right?
Something like that, yeah.
Well, I'm not sure, Bob, how we met. We became friends on Facebook, and then I thought I met you at a local event here in Pasco County, Florida. Turns out it wasn't you. You weren't there, but this Bucket of Hopes thing had been in my head. To build a show around, because when I was exposed to what it was, I was like, this is awesome. So it's very cool that we were able to set aside some time. And now, during the COVID breakout and the pandemic and all that, I haven't had yet anybody in the studio. Now I can have somebody on the other end of the studio and be 6 feet apart, but it's not our usual format to use Zoom. So I'm thankful for Zoom. I'm thankful for you being here. We're going to talk about what you guys do, but let me first just address the audience real quick, and then we'll get back to you, buddy. I want to thank you guys for continuing to support the Godlogic Project. I'm not going to ask for any kind of financial support during this COVID-19 thing. I know a lot of people are hurting, and if I had the resources to help you, I certainly would financially, but I can't. What I can do is continue to offer my services for the community at large. If you have somebody in your family struggling with addiction, if you yourself are struggling with addiction, if you have any spiritual questions, or you're on a spiritual journey and you have questions about Christianity, please contact me at godlogicproject.com. If I can help you, I certainly will. If I can't do it, I'll find somebody that can, or I'll flat tell you I can't. But in any case, the real goal of the Godlogic Project is to continue to give back and pour into the community. Now, we won't ask for any kind of financial support till this COVID thing is over. But what I do ask is that you subscribe and ring the alert bell. So that, believe it or not, is supporting the Godlogic Project. It only takes a second, doesn't cost a thing, but it is a big help to the Godlogic Project. And I appreciate you guys and pray for you continuing to support us. Now, Bob, we have explain to people, introduce them to Buckets of Hope and explain to them kind of what it is, and then we'll talk about how you got into it in the first place. What is Buckets of Hope?
Sure. Well, Buckets of Hope is a fundraising event format that we have put together as a kit, and we supply that to churches, other ministries, schools, homeschools, colleges, whatever groups that would want to do it, that are faith-based, Christian-based groups, to want to put on their own Buckets of Hope fundraiser. What makes our program unique is that they pick those specific groups, pick the project, and then of their own choosing, and send the funds directly to the project. This is a ministry, this is God's ministry, and we don't make a penny. In fact, our kits, we do sell them, but they're at below cost. But we want to at least sell them so that people are a little bit more vested once they purchase it, that it's something that they'll want to do. A fundraising event kit works similar to how the Vacation Bible School kit works. They're basically a canned format, and it gives the event host or the organizer everything they need to be able to put on their own fundraising event.
So this is something that 5013Cs can do, nonprofits can use to raise funds to support whatever ministry they're running. Certainly churches can use it. That would be a big plus for churches to be able to raise funds, and even schools, private schools certainly. But the idea is that for me, what impressed me about it is that it's so different than the usual selling those candy bars that my kids have been selling now for 20-something years. I think I sold them when I was a kid, even, car washes, bake sales, the types of things that we generally do in ministry. I'm both a parent and I help run a church, and I run ministries, and we're constantly in fundraising. I know my son's free school is constantly asking me for money. They're constantly doing some kind of free, some kind of fundraising. So, but this is very different. So they can contact you, and I'm going to show your website now early, because this is this is really a good way to explain. All right, right now, folks can see your website, so we're looking at your website now, and it's called Buckets of Hope, and they can contact you through your website, correct?
Right.
Any questions they have, any kind of support they might need, can come through the website, and we're looking, as I scroll, I'm looking at some of the ways that some of the ministries, international ministries even, that have benefited from putting on a Buckets of Hope event here in the United States. So there are different projects. You were talking earlier about projects to fund. I'm in the projects to fund list, but you've got Soul Missions, Food for the Hungry, International Child Care Ministries, in Better Hands, Yucatan Blessing House, The Voice of the Martyrs, Samaritan's Purse International, and they've become a little bit famous here lately. TeamBalkans.com. There's a whole bunch of ministries that folks, if they don't have a ministry to raise money for, they can choose one of those. Is that how that works?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. That's our bucket list, and we actually have a couple others that I'm going to be adding to there. Not every church or group has a specific project, and you could do some support local ministries too, rather than some global type projects.
Right.
But which I would certainly encourage, or splitting it up a little bit. Back to your earlier point as far as the format, and you can raise some significant dollars through this. We did this at our local church for 3 years and raised close to $25,000. And basically, the format itself is a basketball shoot-a-thon. Now, you could do it with other sports, other activities, but we picked basketball because we had a basketball program. We had a gymnasium at our church, and so the Buckets of Hope and all of that, it just kind of tied it together. In fact, our website domain ends in a .net for basketball.
Right. Perfect. So, and I noticed there, Buckets of Hope is a name a lot of people are using, but bucketsofhope.net tells you it's basketball. What could be better than that? Bucketsofhope.nba.
I have a friend that's wanting to do something similar, but his passion is soccer, and so soccer have soccer nets, so that works too. But you could certainly do it with bowling. I don't care. Basically, I think the format itself could be used for just about anything that you'd want to do.
But you can be a church that has a gymnasium and can do this once a year just to raise money for the teen program or for mission programs or just for the campus fund itself. Is that right? Can they use it for themselves?
Yeah, our purpose or our desire is that it would be to support Christian ministries. And when I say that, so I apologize I'm getting some Facebook notifications and I don't know how to turn it off, the volume. So I apologize if that's coming through. But we really focused on doing compassion-related ministries, but it could be for anything that is Christian. The intent wasn't to help the local humane society or save the whales. Those are all good programs. I'm not doubting, but that's not what Buckets of Hope was about. It's actually sharing the hope, providing hope to people in need, as well as sharing the ultimate hope, the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Right. So in this, they get the opportunity to raise funds for whatever ministry they pick. But then they also, we get these kids exposed to the gospel message that maybe sometimes may not have otherwise been exposed. So,
well, through the church and also through the ministry that they're supporting with their funds, those ministries that you mentioned earlier are all faith-based. I mean, Christian ministries where sharing the gospel is equal to providing to the physical needs to people in many cases.
Yeah. So so I'm going to take a second just to let you know that we've gotten, I'll let the Facebook people know, that we got knocked off of YouTube, or we didn't connect to YouTube electronically, and I'm not sure why, but since we already started the show, the YouTube version of this is going to be recorded and uploaded after the show, so we're not live on YouTube, but we're still live on Facebook for the time being. But we had some kind of technical failure that doesn't have us streaming live now on YouTube, but as soon as we're done, I'll render it and I'll upload it, and it'll be on there by the end of the night. But we are live, so I'll check I say all that to say this. I'll follow the messages and comments on Facebook, the Godlogic Project on Facebook, rather than the Godlogic Project on YouTube tonight. For some reason, God wanted us to focus on Facebook tonight.
That's okay. As you know, through this whole sheltered-in-place, churches across the country are either on Facebook Live or YouTube Live. And so it's fantastic how the gospel is getting out and reaching so many more, exponentially more than what they are inside the four walls of a church building.
Yeah, and more people are being exposed to the gospel message this way. I have a lot more people calling me, people I wouldn't expect, my kind of secular or left-wing friends calling me with questions about what's going on, theological questions, looking for prayer and things like that. And then also we're able to, when we do our service every Sunday on Facebook Live, on our Facebook Live page, I'm seeing a lot of faces, and I know everybody at my church, almost everybody. I try to. I'm seeing a lot of faces and a lot of families I don't recognize. So it's in a strange way, maybe bringing some exposure to local families that otherwise wouldn't have made time to come to church on Sunday. So there's a blessing in every bad thing that's ever happened.
You bet. You bet.
I'm going to just put a message real quick on Facebook so they stay there, and then we'll go back. And as we speak, I'll kind of follow the messages on Facebook instead of YouTube, but ultimately it'll be the same thing. So somebody has a ministry they want to raise money for, a Christian ministry, faith-based ministry they want to raise money for. What do? They contact you at the website. Walk us through the process of what could they expect through the process of setting up a Buckets of Hope for whatever at their church or for whatever ministry they're kind of focused on.
Well, we intentionally set up our website, and we do have a Facebook page as well. But our website, we intentionally set it up so that the home page of our website is basically an FAQ. And so, I mean, I had it differently. I ran it past a couple of the generation below me or two, and just to get their ideas. And they say, well, what is this? It was confusing. And so we changed the format to what it is right now. And so you go onto the homepage, and just about every question you'd have is there with the answers, which takes you in a little bit to some of the other pages of the website. But essentially, on our website, you go to the store once you decide you want to do this, and you could purchase our kit. And the kit contents are listed on the website, and I've got them here as props to show you as well. But they purchase the kit, and that's done through PayPal or whatever, a secure site. And I get the notification, and we ship out the kit. And like I said, it gives them just about everything they need to be able to put it on.
And it literally comes in a bucket. That's pretty cool.
It literally comes in a bucket. Here's bear with me. You can see that. Can you see that okay?
Wait, I'm showing your website. Let me move that out of the way. Yeah, you've got a bucket. So it comes, everything they need to set this off in their local church or ministry comes in a single bucket?
Yeah. Yeah. Now, what we did at our local church, a lot of the proceeds went towards purchasing the Sawyer cartridge water filters that are attached to a 5-gallon bucket. And so you put dirty water in, and clean water comes out of it, drinkable water out of it. And we use these, and many churches and ministries are doing the same in developing countries, especially rural areas where clean water is just not plentiful for people. And so having the 5-gallon bucket already is a prop if that's something that you wanted to do as your group to use to fund something like that. There's other items. We do include the Sawyer water filter in there. And then there's also a mosquito net. That's another big thing to help people out in developing countries. They're dealing with all kinds of diseases from mosquitoes, sleepless nights, constantly bugged by mosquitoes. Kids can't get to sleep, can't study well, that kind of stuff. And mosquito nets are a very inexpensive but wonderful thing to help provide. At one of our events, we even set up the mosquito net, and we had one of our pastors actually dressed as a giant mosquito, and we nicknamed him Skeeter. He'd go around chasing the kids, and they'd get inside the net where they were safe. So, but those are a couple of props. There's a lot more of the contents there. I could show you that.
Well, I put up your website, bucketsofhope.net, easy to remember because it's the name of the ministry, plus being a kind of a basketball-focused ministry. .net works out perfectly, right? So
it does. It does. But again, it doesn't have to be basketball. It's just what works for us, and it works with the name and everything like that. So and basically, it is a basketball shoot-a-thon. A lot of people are familiar with how a walk-a-thon works. Walk-a-thon, it's for a specific cause. Maybe it's Alzheimer's or cystic fibrosis or any number of things. And where I live, there's probably a walk-a-thon going on every weekend here. And so we didn't want to do another walk-a-thon. But that's kind of what it is. The participants in the event, they go out and they get sponsors for them to come, shoot baskets. Maybe it's no defined format as far as when they come in and shoot, but a group could make something like that. Could even do a 3-on-3 tournament with it. Would be a great thing. Yeah. I had one little girl that at one of the events, her goal was to make 100 baskets. And this is probably a 4th grader. And she was there for a long time shooting and counting the baskets, and her dad couldn't be there. I think her mom was with her. Her dad couldn't be there. Well, once she made her 100th basket, I heard her on the phone, and she was so excited. She called her dad, and she was so tickled pink that she had made the 100 basket. So maybe she went out and got people to donate X amount of money per basket.
Yeah. So it
doesn't have to be anything like that, but grandma, a neighbor, school, whoever, say, oh, okay, yeah, I'll give you $10 for that. And they come and participate. It's more than that, just that, and I want to get into that a little bit. So they can only one aspect of it.
The local churches can then could then have prizes for so many sign-ups or so many dollars or so many baskets or whatever it is. You get a next level church shirt for 20 sign-ups or something, so they could help support the kids, support the ministry. Is that how? Does anybody ever do that, or is that how it works?
Oh my, yeah. Let me turn. I'm going to take my headphone or earbuds out. Let me turn around here.
Oh, so they could even get local businesses. There you go. You can even get.
You see all that?
Yeah. You can get local businesses.
Those are the people that we had either do underwriting or provide incentive prizes. So the way we did it, again, this is the way we did it. It's a suggestion, is for every $100 that a participant, it's not just kids, but for every $100 a participant raised, their name got put into a bucket. And so the more money you raise, the more often your name got put in.
Yeah.
And then we drew the tickets out of there for the different incentive prizes. And some of them were pretty big. Like we had 4 tickets to one of the water parks, an indoor water park. That was a pretty cool prize. The Detroit Pistons one year gave us 4 tickets. Of course,
oh, cool.
They haven't been good in a while, but still, it was like, Dad looked at me and said, "Oh man, why?" Oh, no, local university, Spring Arbor University near us, actually gave away some sports camps, which was a big
Oh, that's
thing.
very cool.
Another youth camp gave away a whole scholarship for a youth camp, which is about a $250 item. We had lots of things like that.
Yeah.
And then, of course, some of the underwriting was just to be able to put on the event. The T-shirt that I'm wearing, each participant got a T-shirt, and we didn't want the money that they raised to be purchasing the T-shirt or some of the other expenses, and so the underwriting took care of that.
Like a local car dealership can furnish the shirts in exchange for having their name on the back of the shirt.
You bet. Yeah.
So they can kind of coordinate this whole thing, set it all up, and then maybe raise money. Now, is it bad form or a faux pas to raise money for your own church by doing this?
I don't know how much of a community involvement you'll get.
Yeah.
But I will say at our church, we didn't raise money for our specific church. We raised money that our church had as projects. And we had a youth basketball program that we had done for a number of years. And so it just was a good tie-in with that.
Yeah.
But I would say, 2/3, or more than 50% of the kids, families that participate in our basketball program do not attend our church. They may attend another church, or they may not even attend at all. And yet I had a lot of people participate. One little girl, she attended another church, went to her church and told them what they were doing. It was a smaller church, and they actually sponsored her. I think it was a little over $600. But it was for the projects that our specific church was actually involved in. But it was still helping people. There's a lot of turf wars among churches.
Yeah.
I mean, if anything, hopefully what this virus is doing is tearing down those walls and unifying the body of believer across the country, rather than I got to be careful because the church next door or down the street, that kind of stuff. So
yeah, and
that's getting off on a different tangent. But
yeah, folks get kind of set in a rut, so they do kind of the same fundraisers every year. We have a youth ministry that we do a lot of internal fundraising for. So like the portion of the proceeds from other things, other groups like the Next Women Group and so on, go towards paying for the kids to go to Passion Camp every year.
Yeah.
So this would be a good way to pay that bill for everybody once a year, and then some.
That's a way.
Yeah, for the kids in the youth group to where we are is kind of a economically depressed, kind of a rougher area in Florida, and these kids, if they come to youth group, their family doesn't have money to send them to Orlando for the weekend or wherever Passion Camp's going to be to see Louis Giglio and all these guys and Ravi Zacharias and. So it becomes difficult for us as a very small church in a rougher area to raise enough money to bring these. We're lucky these kids come to youth group. They're not going to. The parents aren't going to probably even able to pay their way to an event like that. So that would be a very handy way to raise some money too, and affordable way to do it.
If I could share just a little bit about what kind of prompted all of this.
Yeah.
I think that might help us a little bit.
Let me ask, did you start this, or is this a franchise that's all around? This is a ministry franchise of some sort? Did you come up with this idea and start it all yourself?
Well, this is an idea that the Holy Spirit gave to me.
Amen.
So my wife and I basically started this. Again, we did it at our local church for 3 years. And then, like you say, you want to do something new, so you don't want to get in a rut. And so it sat still for about a year, and then I just felt an urging, from the Spirit that God said to take what we've learned, all the lessons learned, and everything that we developed for what we did at our local level, and make it available to other church groups and different faith-based groups. So that's what we did. But what really started this for us to do it even at our local church was my wife and I taught a small group, and the study that we did was called I got the book here, The Hole in the Gospel.
Okay.
And that was written by Richard Stearns, who at the time was the CEO of World Vision. And the whole premise of this particular book was that in the Bible, throughout the Bible, Old and New Testament combined, there are 2,000 or more verses dealing with how we as Christians should take care of the poor, those that are in need, less fortunate than us, or the oppressed. And 2,000 verses. I mean, that's a lot. And the premise is if you took like a razor blade or an X-Acto knife and removed those verses from the Bible, it wouldn't even hold together.
Yeah. It's all the way through New Testament and Old Testament.
That's the hole in our gospel, and here in the United States, especially, or the church in the West, again, we've been very self-absorbed as a whole.
Sure.
And the church needs to do more to follow the scripture when it comes to compassion and taking care of the poor and the oppressed and those in prison, the widows, the orphans, all of that. And so that really weighed on us, on me and my wife. And I said, there's got to be something that I should do. Well, for a number of years, our church hosted a youth basketball league, Christian Youth Basketball League. And I coached in it for a number of years. And I said, we have a gymnasium that's got 6 baskets, in it. And we already have 1,000 people total, about 200 to 250 kids participate, and their families show up every Saturday. And so we've got, and then plus our own church body, we've got a great start to be able to do something like this. And so we developed the program. I took it to our church leadership after lots of prayer, and we tried to sell it to them. A little bit of, I'm not real sure, and especially at the time there, we were looking at sending the money to another ministry. Well, our church up here in Michigan was directly involved in a project in Burundi, Africa, which is one of it might be the poorest country in the world, that we were doing a medical clinic and also a food program in Burundi. And then our youth group, generally every summer, would go down to rural areas of Honduras and also minister to the people there. And it was more than putting on a Bible school or different things. It was actually helping people. And so the leadership said, well, we like this idea, but rather than support the other organization, let's have the money go towards these projects.
Right.
And then as we developed it and moved forward, and I contacted different underwriters, we realized, a lot of people still feel they're passionate about local ministries and helping their neighbor out next door as well as the global neighbor. So it's glocal. That's the term. One of my
glocal
friends actually. Glocal.
If I could spell it, I'd put it on the screen too.
Glocal. Glocal. So 80% of the monies that we raised went towards our global projects in Honduras and Burundi. I think it was split 50-50 there. 20% stayed at home and supported some local ministries like our local pregnancy resource center, a food pantry, another food backpack weekend backpack food ministry that we had. So that was real good. So it could before COVID-19 hit and all this happened, and we still don't know the reason for everything, but there are some blessings through that. But I was in the early stages of planning a community-wide, multiple-site basketball weekend that Buckets of Hope would be part of. I don't know if it would be a total Buckets of Hope thing,
Mm-hmm.
or it would just be Buckets of Hope would be part of this whole thing. We were going to do 3-on-3 tournament, and certainly the shoot-a-thon, basketball clinics, and maybe some all-star games. I have some friends that are both former pro players in the NBA and then also in Europe, both husband and wife, and college standouts and all that. And they had a lot of connections, and so we're going to bring back some current pro players as well as former pro college and high school standouts, and really make this a thing. But it was going to be God-centered, and we were going to evangelistic and have worship band and do all that.
So the
what we were going to have, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
What we were going to do is also make this a local ministry fair. So several of the Christian-based ministries, like a drug recovery, which I know is certainly a passion of yours,
Sure.
Kevin.
Yep.
The local Salvation Army, the Pregnancy Counseling Center, our homeless shelter, and there's a anti-human trafficking home for women to go to. So there's also a youth camp that you had mentioned, something like your Passion Camp.
Yep.
So we were going to highlight these ministries, and they would have exhibits and set up and everything. And then all the money that was raised through this event was going to be distributed to these different ministries. So that's something we were going to do here locally. That's something you could do in where you're originating
Holiday,
from,
Florida.
Kevin, in Holiday, Florida, or anybody could do in Minneapolis or Phoenix or Hicksville, Ohio, or wherever.
So we
there's a Hicksville, Ohio, by the way.
Is there? There's probably
Yes.
one in Florida. Probably Crackerville in Florida. We had years ago built a church in Kenya, Africa. We raised money for a friend of ours, Wayne Derry, to build it. They actually painted a sign. The congregants painted a sign that says "Next Level Church, Kenya, Africa" on it, which is pretty cool. And they hung it on the building when they were done. But back then, it only cost $7,000 to build a church in Africa. I've had on the show a missionary from Uganda, I believe, and she runs the Fortress, and it is a ministry that takes culturally, if a teenager gets pregnant, culturally the family just disowns her in a sense. So they take them in and they teach them, they help them keep the baby, have a healthy baby, and then how to raise a baby, and then reading, writing, and everything that goes along with it. And so I say all that to say this: you and I have something in common we didn't know about until the pre-show warm-up. We're both from the same denomination, Free Methodist. We're both Free Methodists. And that is most people, you don't meet many Free Methodists because it's a very small denomination here in the United States, but it's a bigger 97% or 95% of our churches are outside the United States. So we get the name Free from being an abolitionist Methodist denomination. B.T. Roberts, upstate New York, was arguing every year at the annual convention that we shouldn't be against slavery, but owning slaves in the Methodist Episcopal Church, and then eventually they kicked him out, and the Free Methodist started. So we are, in our very nature, in our DNA, a social justice warrior denomination. So that is kind of the ilk of the Free Methodist Church. I'm sure you're familiar with all the background there. But so you talk about James. I think it was James tells us we know somebody's religion is pure, that they care for widows and orphans, right? And so this seems to be a perfect ministry for our denomination, right? So it seems like no coincidence that you're a Free Methodist running a ministry that looks to go outside outside of the four walls of any given church, but to raise money for local widows and orphans in a sense, and then locally get out there and raise money for ministries around the world. So I will, of course, set you up with the people from the Fortress, and that would be a great ministry to add to your bucket list. And
yeah, that'd be great.
Pastor,
That'd be great. Like I said, we've got a couple that we're going to be adding here probably within the next week. So if people wanted to like and follow us on Facebook, that's been my primary marketing vehicle, just because I have a day job and my wife has a day job, and so.
Well, I'm showing your Facebook right now, and they can contact you right through your Facebook, right? And you have
it'll ding, but yeah, but if I could, right now we're close to 1,000. I think we're
999. By the way, you're one subscriber away, one like away from.
We added one.
So
that doesn't do anything for me, except that if you like, comment, share, you're going to see more of our. The way Facebook works and their algorithms, the more people that like, comment, and share, then the more times we post, it'll get out there.
And the more interaction you have makes a big difference. So people would then share your posts, and that would, any kind of interaction, like thumbs up, comment, thumbs down, sharing your post will make it show up more and more on people's feeds, and that's how you raise awareness for a ministry in 2020. The way you're doing it, so that's a perfect plan. I'm trying to do the same thing with YouTube, and it's an uphill battle. In fact, YouTube has I figured out through lots of study how to get YouTube to recommend my content, put YouTube to work for the Godlogic Project, and so I was doing pretty good numbers by suggested videos, and then all of a sudden they cut me off. So I think I upset the people. I know it's not Zuckerberg, but I upset somebody at YouTube with my content. And now I'm like at 0.8% suggested videos, so they're not pleased with me anymore.
Maybe it was that whole conspiracy program you had.
Well, I did an episode about a girl that came from the sex trade industry, and it was a very popular episode for us, and it did well. But I took a copyright strike from Dr. Phil, and I think that got me. It got me knocked off of YouTube, kind of cold suspended, and then I fixed that. But I think it gave them time to look at the rest of my content, and they're not maybe wild about conservative content. Although I'm kind of all over the place that way. So that's a long story to say this. Wait, I'll switch cameras now. It's a good segue. That's a long story to say this. I'm not getting the kind of traction I was hoping to get or was getting previously in the YouTube algorithm. More important than ever that you guys subscribe and share and comment the content you see all over social media for the Godlogic Project, because that helps me build this ministry and build awareness for the ministry. And in doing that, you build awareness for all the ministries that come on the show every week and talk about what they're doing. So it's an easy way to make a real difference by subscribing to the Godlogic Project. Pretty important stuff. There it is. That was my last plug for now. Every once in a while, if I remember, I'll plug the channel. I usually beg for money or financial support, but in this environment, I'm not going to grow the channel in this environment. I'd rather people keep their money and take care of themselves and the people around them, and to be sure that they have the things they need. Because right now, financially, not just the United States, but this world's in pretty big trouble. So now more than ever, something like what you're doing could be very beneficial, to raise awareness for a lot of things that might then get swept under the rug because people begin to worry a lot about their own situation,
Well, just prior to us talking about doing this podcast, a post that I put out was aimed at families that are sheltered in place, and they're kind of bored. They played every game of Yahtzee backwards, forward, in every way they can, and they're trying to figure out what to do. Well, this is a great activity to plan, and you could do virtual planning with other families or within your church or within your school, and you can start the planning process, because planning this, we have learned through, and this is even us doing it for 3 years, but we learned to really do it right and a little bit bigger, to go out and get those sponsors, those incentive prizes, and to really get as many participants to come in. It takes 3 to 4 months. So you got to have a venue, and the date, and not every church has a gym. So you go to the local community center and it's got one, or maybe team up. There's that whole unifying thing, team up with other churches, or with a Christian school or a college or even the public elementary school. Now you got a gym, you got a date, now you have to pick a project. And then once you got that, everything else, all that we supply a project timeline, like a task timeline, is as part of the information that they get in the kit. We also give you an idea of how many volunteers you're going to need. We even give you your meeting, proposed meeting schedule with agenda items on the meeting.
So they can keep everything perfectly organized.
To make it as easy as possible. There you go.
And
there
certainly organizing in church doesn't always go hand in hand. So there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen or chiefs. Everybody's a chief. Nobody's an Indian in church life.
Yeah, there you go. The whole 20-80 rule type deal.
They need that. They need that structure. We certainly always need structure here, and we have certain staff members here that are just designed for structure, and it makes it easy for morons like me to follow along. So they can contact you either through Facebook or through your website. They can certainly contact the Godlogic Project, and I will get them your information. But then they can use this to raise money for really any kind of Christian-based charity that they like, a Christian school or churches, ministries within the churches, and then, of course, like you like to do, get them to think outside of their four walls and think of their local community and then maybe the global community as well.
Right,
exactly.
So, and for instance, I'm going to be checking it out on Facebook soon, but we're hooking up with a ministry out of Southern California where they dig wells. Different locations in Africa. Yeah. A well starting new digging it costs about $6,000. That's just cost. And then they also are educating the people how to basically maintain the well, and then also on hygiene and sanitation and all that. So it's not just here's your well and on to the next place. They are there to really build a relationship and help that whatever community it is. Yeah. Well, so just think $6,000 or $10,000. That's very achievable by doing a Buckets of Hope, and now you supplied a whole community with clean water. Or how about a school?
Yeah,
kids love helping other kids. If a school could take on an orphanage in Haiti and figure out whatever that orphanage is in Haiti. Now, for example, one of the groups on our bucket list is International Child Care Ministries. They do a child sponsorship, but you also can do a whole community sponsorship. So your church or school could say, well, I'm going to set a goal of raising $5,000, $10,000, whatever it is, and we're going to sponsor a whole community. Well, that means you're feeding people one good meal a day, you're providing education, you're providing maybe clothing for everybody in that community, in that smaller community. I mean, there's the possibilities are endless.
Yeah, and they could, and the certainly watching this episode is going to get their creative juices flowing in terms of how they can begin to reach out. And you guys, with your experience, can guide them through this process. The bucket certainly will have the tools they need to get this thing going. So we're going to kind of wrap up the show now. We're about 42 minutes and 56 seconds into the episode, and so we're going to. If we were gonna give somebody an elevator speech, if we only had a couple minutes to tell them what it is a Bucket of Hope is, what is your kind of elevator speech? What is it that they need to know? Certainly the website, bucketsofhope.net, the Facebook page, Buckets of Hope on Facebook, and then and so go ahead and kind of sign off by kind of giving them a snapshot of where you're at.
All right, my elevator speech would be our mission, which you can see on the banner behind me, to offer a fun and purposeful fundraising event that is going to, by faith-based groups, where everyone can make a difference. Everybody's kind of heard that thing again, but make a difference by providing hope for our global and our local neighbors in need. You can provide hope by taking care of some of their physical needs, those that especially are in extreme poverty and oppression. You support the relational efforts. So let's say you're supporting a group like Voice of the Martyrs or Samaritan's Purse or the local missionary group that your church might support in Bulgaria or Haiti or wherever. You're supporting their efforts to build relationships and share Jesus Christ and expand the gospel around the world. You're also, one big element we didn't really touch on, I know we don't have a lot of time, is the educational aspect. get on our website. We have a thing called purpose rooms. We want everybody that comes into a Buckets of Hope event to be educated on what the project is, and what the need is, and what that church or group is trying to do, what the goal is. And so we provide a lot of information and prop ideas and did you know factoids for extreme poverty and water and everything. So it's educating. And then the final element would be to inspire others, and no matter how big, how small, how much money they have, or how little money, that everyone can make a difference. Yeah. And that's all it takes. Is if you can create a spark in somebody, who knows where. Somebody created a spark with us, and somebody created a spark, and that person that led to us, you know how that works. Yeah. And so if we can do that, if your church or group can do that, those are the four main things: provide hope, support relational efforts, educate, and inspire.
Yeah, and they could actually literally build a relationship with this ministry in South America or in Africa, and maintain a relationship with them and help them with other projects as the year goes on, or once a year, or anything like that. So the opportunity for this to be for the low investment of finances, and certainly there's going to be some investment in time and resources, but the effects is exponential. The effect you can have in different parts of the world through this little bit of effort every year, or whatever it is, can be really can make a long-term difference in for people that we take things for granted in the United States.
Yeah.
I was complaining on Facebook today that I had to use single-ply toilet paper. Right? I was like, what is this, Little House on the Prairie? So I have
right?
Yeah, we have some high-class problems in the United States, you know.
I know we're crazy, and this whole quarantine thing is, I mean, you make jokes about that's part of how we cope. I understand. And if you followed me on Facebook, you'd see all my jokes.
Yeah.
But this is a serious thing, but you can have fun making a difference, and that's what this is. So the emphasis on fundraising, but just real quick, on our website also is our recipient gallery, and you click on there. These are the people that actually received benefit from what we were supplying at our church, that were being fed, that their needs were being addressed in a medical clinic, that there wasn't one for hours and hours away from them in Burundi, that were being given fresh water for the first time in their life, that were sleeping in a mosquito-free area. When you look at those pictures, I mean, they just break your heart.
Yeah.
But you feel good. Everybody feels good when you help other people. Yeah. So a lot of us are self-absorbed, or we kind of wallow in our own misery of whatever it may be here in the United States. Get out of that by serving other people.
Yeah,
and that'll change your life.
It really does. It really does make a difference. And I stick to one of the rules I stick to in life is don't take yourself too damn serious. And so while I take my ministry and my faith and my salvation very seriously, I don't take myself all that seriously. So it becomes a lot easier to endure the things that we're enduring right now if we as Christians particularly focus on the vine, right? John 15, abide in the vine and don't worry about the fruit. That's going to become more important now than ever. And there's times the vine dresser will prune us, not that we're being punished, but that we would bear more and better fruit. So there's an answer in Scripture for the things we're going through, and the things that it tends to help to put things in perspective, if that makes sense. So I appreciate your being on the show, and I'm gonna sign off here in a minute. I want to tell you guys again, thank you for always supporting the Godlogic Project. And if you're interested in any kind of fundraising, this Buckets of Hope is one of the coolest fundraising ideas I've seen in a long time. This is not streaming, like you know, live on Facebook, on YouTube, but it is live on Facebook still, it looks like. We will have this episode up on YouTube here in just a little while. And you guys on Facebook, thank you for watching. Please follow the Godlogic page on YouTube, on Facebook, and share our content on social media when you see it. And that goes for Buckets of Hope, too. So in the description of the video that we're going to upload to YouTube, I'm going to have all the links to reach out to Bob Wilson and Buckets of Hope. and see if we can't get a connection made. I'm also going to contact you privately, Bob, with some of the ministries that I've been involved with that might be interested in what you have to say. So appreciate you being on the show. I appreciate you guys watching. If no one's told you they love you today, God loves you, and so do we. Receive that. Be blessed, and we'll speak soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you,
bro.
Everybody. Thank you for supporting the Godlogic Project. And if no one's told you they love you today, God loves you. So do I. Receive that. Be blessed. We'll speak soon. This has been a Rev Kev production. Your mileage may vary.
Shut up, Kevin.